The bourbon glass on the bar was still warm when Police Lieutenant Henry Lawson vanished in downtown Denver, Colorado, population over 492,000. On a February night in 1979, a blizzard swept through the Rocky Mountains, burying the city under nearly a foot of ice. At 9:30 p.m., the bartender at McLain's bar saw Lawson leave with Evelyn Kane, the wife of a prominent local real estate businessman. He wore a green knit cap, she wore a long gray coat, and the two stepped out of the bar, crossing the snow-covered street toward Clear Creek Canyon. The waiter watched from behind the glass door as their car lights gradually faded into the white snow. What happened on that winter night would haunt Denver for the next 37 years. Before diving deeper into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest cases. The winter of 1979 hit Denver with the harshest cold in years. Snow blanketed the streets, the air thick with moisture and fog, the streetlights casting a hazy glow reflected on the ice, creating the characteristic cold yellow light of the Colorado mountains. In the city, life slowed down. Highways were closed in sections, traffic reduced to just a few police cars and snowplows. In the midst of that winter, Lieutenant Henry Lawson, 42 years old, a veteran officer of the Denver Police Department, suddenly disappeared without a trace. Lawson had served nearly 20 years in the force, described by colleagues as principled, calm, and with almost no social life outside of work. He lived with his wife Linda and two young children in a western suburb, in a small house that was always lit up every winter evening. No one thought a man like that could just walk away, let alone in weather so severe that even rescue teams limited their outings. That evening, Lawson was seen at a small bar on 17th Street, a spot many police officers frequented after shifts. According to the bartender, he arrived alone, sat at a corner table by the window, ordered bourbon, and only spoke with a woman who appeared a few minutes later, Evelyn Kane, 29 years old, wife of real estate businessman Andrew Kane. Her name was well known from society pages, a young, beautiful woman who often accompanied her husband to fundraising events or real estate project launches. No one understood why she and Henry were meeting under those circumstances. The bartender only remembered them talking for quite a while, not loudly, but Henry seemed tense, while Evelyn kept looking out through the frosted window. When the snow started falling heavily, they left the bar together. After that, no one saw Henry Lawson again. The next morning, he didn't show up for work, his desk untouched, his winter coat still hanging on the chair. His wife thought he might have been called away on sudden duty, but the home phone rang all day with no answer. By evening, Linda called her husband's colleagues and learned Henry had no off-duty assignments registered. Worry turned to panic when she didn't see her husband's green Chevrolet Nova in the garage. That night, the entire Lawson household stayed awake. Another day passed with no call, no letter, no sign that Henry had ever left the city. In desperation, Linda went to the Denver police headquarters to report her husband missing, along with the last description of his clothing, vehicle, and habits. In a winter when the entire city seemed frozen solid, the news of a missing police officer immediately caught the attention of the brass. The Denver police quickly opened a file coded Missing Officer Henry Lawson. Per internal protocol, any disappearance involving department personnel was treated as an emergency. Lieutenant Robert Hale, a former colleague and longtime friend of Henry, was assigned to lead the investigation. Hale was one of the most experienced investigators in the homicide unit, known for his meticulous style and for never missing a detail. To him, this case was personal. Henry wasn't just a colleague, but someone who had worked dozens of cases with him over the previous decade. On the first day, Hale formed a small team of 6 investigators to comb through Henry's entire schedule in the 48 hours before he vanished. Administrative reports showed Henry had no special assignments or overtime requests. Shift logs confirmed he left headquarters on time that afternoon. Colleagues on duty recalled that Henry carried a separate file folder, saying he would stop somewhere before heading home. After that, no one saw him. The first point of the sweep was the Yard House Bar, where witnesses said they had seen Henry on the evening he disappeared. Police worked with the bar owner and all evening staff. The payment receipt showed Henry was there and had one bourbon. According to accounts, he sat with a young woman, light brown hair, wearing a long gray coat, about 30 years old. They talked for nearly an hour, not loudly, but it seemed tense. When the snow thickened, both left the bar together. From the witness descriptions, the investigation team identified the woman as Evelyn Kane, wife of real estate businessman Andrew Kane. That name silenced the room in Hale's briefing. The Kane family was one of the most powerful names in Denver's financial circles, and the fact that their wife was with a police officer right before he vanished was a detail that could not be ignored. Hale ordered a preliminary background check on Evelyn and Andrew, while requesting call records from Henry's desk phone for the final week. While awaiting results, Hale and two investigators visited Linda Lawson's home for more clues. The small house in West Denver's suburbs remained tidy, with no signs of disturbance. Linda, after 3 sleepless days, said Henry had been quiet lately, often bringing work home, occasionally jotting notes in a small black notebook. When asked, she handed the notebook to police. Inside were only short lines, symbols, abbreviations, and a few scattered numbers, not enough to decipher meaning. Hale sealed the notebook and sent it to the forensics lab for handwriting analysis. In the following days, the team scoured all routes Henry might have taken after leaving the bar. However, no witnesses saw his blue Chevrolet Nova leave the downtown area, and there were no reports of collisions or accidents that night. State Patrol was notified to expand the search beyond Denver, especially routes leading to Clear Creek Canyon, an area several colleagues said Henry had mentioned recently in connection with a land investigation. When the background check results came in, Hale noted that Henry had made 2 short calls from his office before leaving the station. One was confirmed to Andrew Kane's office. Hale logged this detail in the file as a point to verify. Meanwhile, forensics concluded there were no unusual financial transactions in Henry's accounts. No withdrawals, no large expenditures, ruling out the possibility he left voluntarily. By the end of the 4th day, the interim report showed the last time Henry Lawson was seen was at the yard house, leaving with Evelyn Kane in heavy snow. With no evidence he went home, or to any other location. No witnesses heard gunshots, arguments, or crashes. No physical clues. All police had was a timeline abruptly cut off, starting from when Henry stepped out of the bar and vanished into the Winter City. From there, the missing officer case was officially escalated to a full-scale investigation. Robert Hale, with years of experience, knew every passing hour cooled a lead. He directed his team to prepare search plans on routes out of Denver, while issuing a summons for Evelyn Kane to come in the next day. To him, this wasn't just a case file, it was a journey to find answers for the disappearance of someone who had sat beside him in countless case briefings. On the morning of the 5th day since Lieutenant Henry Lawson was reported missing, Denver's weather eased slightly. The search expanded to the western mountains, where winding roads along Clear Creek Canyon began to thaw from thick ice. Robert Hale and 2 investigators headed there, coordinating with State Patrol. This was the area Lawson had mentioned in his final work notes, and the only direction traffic control systems recorded his Chevrolet Nova heading on the night he vanished. In the early afternoon, a patrol team reported finding a vehicle matching the description, blue paint, license plate 8C719, abandoned on a narrow stretch of road in the pass, about 30 miles from downtown Denver. When Hale arrived, snow still thinly covered the roof, indicating the car had been there at least 1 or 2 nights. The Nova was angled halfway off the road, right rear wheel hanging over the edge of the slope, as if the driver had braked hard and slid. The driver's door was ajar, headlights still faintly on, battery nearly dead. No signs of major impact or external damage. Some footprints in the snow around the car, but most erased by wind and hail. Hale cautiously approached, ordering a 100-meter perimeter, sealed, and a tent erected to preserve the scene. He personally checked the cabin, the seat still adjusted to Henry's height, radio off, keys in the ignition, and on the passenger floor, a file folder bound with a rubber band. Inside were only copies of building permits, maps of western suburban residential areas, and a few short notes in Lawson's handwriting. No wallet, no gun, no coat. The forensics team arrived later to photograph, lift fingerprints, and collect fibers. Preliminary scene results showed no signs of struggle, no blood, no broken glass. Snow and strong winds from previous days had erased any minor traces that might have existed. One investigator reported the snow around the tires showed signs of prior disturbance, suggesting the car was stopped intentionally rather than by accident. The passenger door was half open, as if someone had just stepped out and not returned. Robert Hale stood at the roadside, surveying the canyon. Below was a frozen stream glistening, flanked by sheer rock walls. He ordered an expanded search along the creek bank, using K-9 units and a Colorado State Rescue climbing team. Meanwhile, the Nova was towed back to Denver's Central Forensics Lab for technical examination. Hale insisted every step be documented as a criminal case. No one on the team still believed this was just an adult walking away. After 2 hours of searching, rescue found no additional items or suspicious footprints leading away. Everything around the car was eerily silent, as if someone had stepped out and melted into the mist. As dusk fell, Hale called off the scene. He looked down the winding road toward the town of Idaho Springs, headlights faintly cutting through the white snow, and realized Henry Lawson's disappearance was no longer routine. An intact car, no collision, abandoned in a mountain pass in freezing weather. It was a silent reminder that behind his colleague's vanishing was something beyond what they usually called a missing person. Immediately after the Chevrolet Nova was brought to the Forensics Center, Lieutenant Robert Hale summoned Evelyn Kane to Denver Police Headquarters for an official statement. She appeared the next morning, on time, accompanied by her personal attorney. In the interrogation room, Evelyn maintained a calm that bordered on cold, wearing a dark business suit, hair neatly pinned up, black leather gloves still on her hands. Hale observed every gesture, noting she showed no fear or nervousness like most witnesses in missing persons cases. When asked about the last evening she met Lieutenant Lawson, Evelyn stated they had coincidentally run into each other at the Yard House bar. She said Henry had called her earlier, wanting to discuss an issue related to a residential planning project in the west side of the city that her husband, Andrew Kane, was involved in. Evelyn said the conversation in the bar was friendly, not tense. "He wanted my opinion on a few details in the file," she said, her voice even and slightly hoarse. Afterward, he said he wanted to head to the mountains for a bit, just to get some fresh air and continue talking more privately. According to Evelyn, she agreed to go along because she thought it was just a short trip. They left the bar around 8 p.m. She sat in the passenger seat. Henry drove west along Route 6. On the way, the two talked sporadically, mostly about work and a few of Henry's personal matters, that he was under a lot of pressure, felt like someone was following him. "I told him to rest, not to let work obsess him too much," Evelyn said. When asked about the destination, she said Henry had no specific goal, just get out of the city a bit. She stated that when they reached the Clear Creek Pass area, Henry pulled over to the side of the road, saying he wanted to step out for some fresh air. Evelyn stayed in the car, listened to the radio, and waited about 10 minutes but didn't see him return. She called out a few times but got no response. "I thought he was just going to the bathroom or having a smoke. I waited longer, then started to worry because it was dark and snowing heavily," she said. Afterward, Evelyn claimed she got out of the car, walked along the road edge searching, but due to the cold and fear of slipping, she returned to the car, tried to start the engine but couldn't. She decided to abandon the car and flagged down a passing truck to get back to the city. Hale listened to the entire statement without interrupting, only occasionally jotting short notes. When she finished, he began asking more detailed questions about timelines, direction of travel, and weather conditions. Immediately, small inconsistencies appeared. Evelyn said they left the bar at 8, but witnesses at the Yard House confirmed the two were still there near 9. She described the winding road with a sign reading Idaho Springs, 12 miles. While the location where the car was found was east of that sign, meaning more than 8 miles from where she claimed. She insisted the headlights were off when they left. But when police discovered it, the headlights were still on. When asked about the weather, Evelyn said light snow. But the meteorological report for that night recorded level 6 winds and localized blizzards, reducing visibility to under 20 meters. In such conditions, stopping on the pass and getting out of the car was nearly impossible. Hale asked, "Did you hear any noise, impact, or see signs of Henry slipping?" Evelyn shook her head. "No, I only heard the wind. I thought he'd come back." Hale asked her to describe the exact spot where she stopped the car, but Evelyn only said, "Somewhere in the middle of the pass," unable to recall mile markers or terrain features. She said, after not seeing Henry return, she flagged down a passing truck and was given a ride back to downtown by a driver. However, when checking the list of vehicles on that route that night, police recorded no truck stopping or reporting encountering a woman walking on the pass. That was the biggest inconsistency. The interrogation lasted over 3 hours. Throughout, Evelyn maintained an even tone, no change in demeanor, sometimes interrupting to request a short break or let the lawyer answer instead. When asked why she didn't report to police immediately when Henry vanished, she replied, "I thought he just wanted to be alone. He said lately he needed quiet." This answer prompted Hale to add a question mark in the margin of the file. At the end, when asked to sign the transcript for confirmation, Evelyn read every line, corrected a few words, then signed, her pen strokes decisive. She was informed that she was still just a witness and could leave, but must be ready to cooperate when needed. As she exited the room, she turned back to Hale, saying softly, "I didn't do anything wrong, Lieutenant. If he's missing, I want to know why too." When the door closed, Robert Hale sat alone with his notes. He cross-referenced the entire statement with the Clear Creek Canyon area map, timelines, and weather data. Nothing matched, from the departure time, travel distance, to the car's condition. According to the technical report, Lawson's car was stopped intentionally, parking brake engaged, and driver's door open toward the drop-off. No traces of Henry exiting the car, but also no signs anyone else stayed long. By the end of the day, Hale's interim conclusion, Evelyn Kane was the last person to see Henry Lawson alive. She was not yet considered a suspect, but her statement, with inconsistencies in time, weather, and location, meant the disappearance was no longer just an incident on the pass. In the official file, next to her name, Robert Hale added a short line, "Key witness, monitor." The next day, while Evelyn Kane's transcript ink was still fresh, Lieutenant Robert Hale and the investigation team returned to Clear Creek Canyon to expand the search area. From early morning, fog enveloped the entire pass, temperatures below -10, cold vapor rising from the frozen stream, creating near-absolute silence. Denver police coordinated with Colorado State Patrol and mountain rescue units to launch the largest operation since the start of winter. 12 officers, 4 K-9 units, and 2 climbing teams were mobilized, focusing around where Henry Lawson's Chevrolet Nova had been found. They divided the area into half-mile radius search grids, each team responsible for sweeping every slope section, rock outcrop, and shallow creek bed. As the sun faded through the fog, the first traces began to emerge. About 30 meters west of the car's position, an investigator discovered a second set of tire tracks, smaller, possibly from a light sedan. The 2 tracks ran parallel to Lawson's, then stopped abruptly at a narrow curve where snow was nearly a foot deep. From that point, the traces vanished, as if the other vehicle had turned around. Forensic specialists quickly sampled soil and snow around the tracks for analysis. No heavy skids or hard braking, indicating the other car stopped deliberately. Hale noted the detail in his book, underlining it 3 times. "Not random," he said quietly. "Someone stopped here with him." Around noon, a rescue team member reported finding a small item wind-caught in a clump of dry grass a few meters from the cliff edge. A 3-inch piece of green fabric, fibers stretched as if torn off. Preliminary comparison showed material consistent with Denver police shirt fabric, but couldn't confirm it was Henry Lawson's. The evidence was sealed and sent to the lab. Not far away, two other officers found shallow ski-like slide marks running diagonally toward the drop-off. New snow had nearly covered them, but exposed fallen rocks indicated someone had slid or been pulled down before heavy snow returned. The search expanded to the frozen creek bed below. Rescue personnel drilled ice at 4 suspect spots, lowered lines to measure temperature and depth. The water beneath was frozen solid, over 10 meters deep, but no foreign objects found. K-9 units were brought to the creek banks, sniffing along both sides. One dog stopped at a bend, barking loudly, but no specific discovery followed. As night fell, the team had to withdraw due to strong winds and small snow slides starting on the mountainside. On the second day, Hale set up a temporary command post right next to where the car was found for easier oversight. He stayed up all night, reviewing topographic maps, cross-checking with Evelyn's statement. The direction she described stopping at a curve, seeing the Idaho Springs, 12-mile sign, but the actual area only had a Clear Creek picnic area, 8-mile sign. The more he compared, the more inconsistencies he saw. Early the next morning, the search team was reinforced, sweeping 2 miles of mountain road against the creek flow. They found a few isolated footprints, faint, but not clear enough to determine direction. Some specialists thought they were old hiker marks, but Hale still ordered photos, measurements, then comparison to Lawson's standard shoe size. By the 4th day, heavy snow fell again. Dropping temperatures made searching dangerous. Still, rescue pushed to access natural rock caves along the slope. One team found a crack in the ice surface, seemingly from someone or something heavy sliding down, but lowering a line revealed only cold water and rotted wood below. No body, no personal items, no fragments belonging to Lawson. The deeper they went, the slimmer hope became. In short meetings by the temporary heater, Robert Hale barely spoke. He reread reports, knew every detail, but couldn't explain if Lawson slipped or had an accident. The body should be within a 1-mile radius of the car. If he left voluntarily, why abandon the car with lights on, door open? A veteran officer wouldn't be that careless. On the 10th day, high winds prevented rescue helicopters from flying low. The entire Clear Creek area sank into opaque white ice. Hale had to suspend night operations for safety. On the 11th day, weather improved. The team returned with weary spirits. Nothing new besides a few wind-blown trash pieces from the road, a rusted metal can, and tire tracks fully covered by snow. By the end of the second week, after scouring over 12 miles of terrain, results were zero. No signs of struggle, no blood, no clear evidence Henry Lawson was alive or dead. Only the car, the green fabric scrap, and faint slide marks like a shadow swallowed by the abyss remained. Under pressure from the department and harsh weather, Robert Hale ordered the operation suspended. All evidence sealed, the file shifted to missing, cause unknown. That afternoon, as rescue vehicles left Clear Creek, the road fell silent again. Only wooden markers for search areas, faint tire impressions in snow, and wind whistling through rock walls remained. Hale stood gazing at the frozen creek, clutching his notebook. He knew this case wouldn't vanish with the snow. But for now, he closed the file temporarily with a chilling note. No body found, no evidence of crime. Search suspended. When the Clear Creek Canyon search operation paused, Lieutenant Robert Hale returned to Denver to oversee the technical examination of the Chevrolet Nova. Henry Lawson's car, towed to the police department's central garage, had been sealed for nearly 2 weeks in intact condition. Now, it became the only remaining evidence in the unsolved disappearance. The forensics team began disassembling, checking every detail per criminal investigation protocol. Hale was present for the initial examination, standing behind the observation glass, eyes fixed on every movement of the white-suited technicians. The first to open the driver's door was technician Samuel Perez. As he bent down to pick up a small object that rolled out from between the seats, everyone fell silent. It was a Colt .45 casing, lightly smoke-stained, with a scratch on the rim. The casing wasn't in an easy drop position. It seemed lodged there for some time, only revealing itself when the seat was fully reclined. Hale immediately ordered photos, measurements, and sealing of the evidence. Per department registry, Henry Lawson was not issued or registered to carry a .45, only the standard force Smith & Wesson 9mm. This discovery instantly thickened the air in the examination room. Continuing in the passenger compartment, technicians found a half-empty bourbon bottle in the door pocket. The brand matched what Henry ordered at the yard house that evening. The cap was loose, remaining liquor lightly frozen from the weather, proving it had been in the car the whole time. Hale ordered fingerprint checks on the glass surface. Preliminary results showed two different print sets, one matching Henry Lawson, the other unidentified. Under the passenger seat, the team discovered Henry's personal police radio, Motorola Model 77, powered off and face down on the floor. This position was unusual. As per regulations, the radio must always be fixed to the dashboard. Hale leaned in, noting the antenna slightly broken, casing scratched, as if from a hard impact. He ordered detailed photos and noted in the report, possible drop during altercation or loss of control. Opening the trunk, the team found only personal tools, flashlight, rope, and an old map marked in red pen for the Western City area. However, another detail stood out. The rear seat floor mat had a small dark brown stain. Hale ordered UV light check, results showing mild positive reaction to blood protein. The sample was taken and sent immediately to forensics. No one spoke, but all understood the implication. If confirmed human blood, the case would officially leave missing persons. The day's composite report went straight to the Denver police captain's desk. Internal Affairs simultaneously launched a review to ensure proper procedure, as the victim was an officer. Under media and internal pressure, the missing officer, Henry Lawson file was officially upgraded to criminal investigation. Suspicious circumstances. A joint team of city police, state, and forensics was formed, tasked with re-examining all evidence, statements, and scene results. In the subsequent internal briefing, Hale summarized developments. He kept his voice calm, but eyes tense. "Nothing in the car suggests Lawson left voluntarily," he said. "The .45 casing, dropped radio, blood trace, and bourbon bottle all point to third-party involvement." A young officer asked, could he have self-inflicted or accident? Hale shook his head. Lawson didn't carry a .45 and never let his radio drop. Every detail contradicts his professional character. When the casing test results came back late that day, it was determined fired within weeks near the disappearance time. No old oxidation. Outside, snow fell again, covering the police department yard ankle deep. Under cold fluorescent lights, Hale stared at the evidence in its clear plastic bag. To him, this was no longer a winter disappearance, but the start of a chain where every detail, no matter how small, held something unnatural. That night, as everyone left the lab, Hale stayed behind. He reopened the file, looking at photos of the Nova on Clear Creek Pass. Lights on, door open, wheels half off the road, now added, the .45 casing image, dropped radio, and small blood streak on the mat, all rearranged into an unsettling logic. At the end of his notes, he added a simple, firm line, treat as criminal case. The next morning, all evidence was sealed and transferred to Denver Forensics for detailed analysis. The casing checked for rifling marks. Blood sample DNA compared to Henry Lawson's profile. Bourbon bottle tested for alcohol content and foreign substances. Radio examined for fingerprints and impact marks. As all were sealed in plastic bags, Hale signed the handover report. Before leaving the room, he paused at the window, where the Chevrolet Nova lay still under white lights, like a silent witness in Denver's freezing winter, and the only thing left between Henry Lawson and the unanswered question. Forensics results from Denver arrived 10 days later in a thick, carefully sealed envelope. Lieutenant Robert Hale received the file early morning, opening each page in a small briefing room, only fluorescent light reflecting on the pale yellow folder cover. The first report concerned the blood sample from the car, confirmed type O, matching Lieutenant Henry Lawson's medical record blood type. High match probability, not ruling out it was his, but insufficient quantity to determine timing. The examiner concluded the blood was too minimal, just a few drops, possibly from a minor wound or intermediate object. However, with no prior injury reports for Henry Lawson, this detail was deemed abnormal. The next results came from ballistics. The Colt .45 casing found in the car was checked for barrel rifling and primer strike marks. Specialists determined it was fired from a .45 caliber weapon, different from Denver Police standard issue. More importantly, trajectory and smoke residue indicated the round was fired from the passenger seat, angled toward the driver's door. No penetration or bullet marks on the vehicle body, proving the shot occurred with the door open. With that firing angle, if the passenger held the gun, the bullet would exit the car, but no bullet head or impact traces were found nearby. Police assessed high likelihood the gun was discharged inside the car, the bullet missing any target, only expelling the casing into the seat crevice. Still, no clear evidence of who held the gun or why it was fired. The fingerprint report also yielded no significant results. All suspicious surfaces in the car, door handles, dashboard, gear shift, bourbon bottle, radio, had mixed fingerprints, most blurred by weather and time. The clear enough prints for comparison all belonged to Henry Lawson. On the bourbon bottle, there were partial secondary handprints, but incomplete, insufficient for identification. The lab retained the sample for future comparison, but at that time, automated fingerprint identification technology was not yet common, leaving the process nearly stalled at visual description level. The final composite report from 3 departments, biology, ballistics, and trace evidence, concluded that there was no direct evidence of violence in the car. No large blood stains, no signs of struggle, no bullet penetration paths, no destroyed objects. Only the casing, bourbon bottle, and radio under the seat. However, when pieced together with the timeline and discovery location, these elements gave Henry Lawson's missing person file a suspicious tone. Denver's criminal investigation team held an internal meeting to discuss the results. In the meeting, Hale presented his analysis. He pointed to the diagram from the ballistics report where the arrow indicated the bullet direction. If this is the true trajectory, the trigger puller had to be in the passenger seat or standing outside the right door. We know the headlights were on, door open, radio dropped. Someone was with him. And if the bullet was just random, why was it there, in the car of an officer who didn't carry that weapon type? Another officer asked, "Do you think Lawson might have carried a personal gun?" Hale shook his head. No, he was principled enough never to drink on duty. Carrying an unauthorized weapon would be even less likely. Despite many questions raised, the law at the time did not allow arrests or further interrogations without direct evidence of a crime. Evelyn Kane, the last person seen with Henry, remained only a witness. Fingerprints in the car were not clear enough, the blood sample did not prove criminal action, and the .45 bullet, though suspicious, could not determine who fired it. The city prosecutor's office, after reviewing the entire file, concluded there was insufficient legal basis to prosecute or charge any individual. Robert Hale accepted this decision in silence. He sat back in his office, rereading every line of the forensics conclusion. No clear signs of crime. Insufficient grounds to confirm homicide or intentional injury. All wrapped in a short, cold paragraph-like technical language. But to him, every detail in the report, the O-type blood, .45 bullet, half bourbon bottle, was an echo of something wrong. That afternoon, the file was sent to the Open Case Management Office. The final line in the status section, case status open. Suspicious disappearance. Meaning the case was not closed, but could not advance further. All evidence was stored in Denver's Criminal Evidence Archive, per preservation regulations for unresolved cases. That evening, as he left headquarters, Hale looked out at the streets bathed in pale yellow light. Thin snow fell, covering car roofs and the walkway in front of the police station. He knew that on paper, Henry Lawson's case was just an open file, waiting for time or luck. But in his mind, Hale understood a man like Henry could not vanish without reason, let alone leave strange traces like these. On the last page of the personal copy he kept, Robert Hale added a small pencil line. Not in any official record, don't forget, cannot be random. In the weeks after the case was held in open status, Lieutenant Robert Hale continued quietly reviewing Henry Lawson's personal and work files. He did not believe a disciplined officer, dedicated to the force for 20 years, could suddenly disappear for personal reasons. From the notes in the black notebook recovered at Lawson's home, Hale began recognizing familiar symbols and locations: CC, Lot 17, Phase 3, all matching maps of land projects in the Clear Creek area that Henry had mentioned in meetings. Cross-checking with city planning files, he discovered Lawson had been assigned to review the legality of a series of land use permits belonging to Kane Development Group, owned by businessman Andrew Kane. The project was exactly in the area where Henry's car was later found. According to administrative reports, Lawson had sent 2 internal memos in early December 1978, raising suspicions about illegal transfers of some Clear Creek parcels from public to private ownership. Those memos were never responded to. Hale went to the archive, dug up the Clear Creek Residential Project folder, and found Henry had signed for multiple Kane Development financial files just days before disappearing. The deeper he dug, the more he sensed something concealed. Whispers began circulating inside the police department that Lawson had poked someone he shouldn't have. Andrew Kane was then a prominent figure in construction, with wide connections to local government and finance. His projects brought hundreds of jobs to West Denver, and his reputation was strong enough that any accusation would stir the city. Hale requested a summons for Andrew to come in, but received only formal cooperation. In the session, Andrew appeared with his lawyer, impeccably dressed, calm voice. "I had no issues with Lieutenant Lawson. I only met him a few times to discuss site security. My wife mentioned talking to him about some administrative procedures, that's all." He denied all rumors of conflict or disputes. However, an unofficial source from the planning office revealed that before disappearing, Henry had scheduled a meeting with a Kane Development accountant, who later abruptly quit and left Denver. Data about this appointment only remained in Lawson's work calendar. Hale went to the accountant's old address, but the apartment was empty. Neighbors said the man moved out right before Christmas, leaving no contact information. Parallel to the financial investigation direction, rumors about a personal relationship between Henry and Evelyn Kane began spreading. A few bar staff said they had seen them meet multiple times before the disappearance night, often at the same spot, talking quietly for long periods. One witness even claimed they looked more intimate than colleagues. When asked, Evelyn denied all rumors. "We only discussed documents my husband needed." Henry was polite, nothing more. But her evasion of detailed questions increased suspicion. Hale did not ignore this angle. He compared Lawson's work schedule with public Kane family events in the prior month. There were at least 3 overlapping times where Evelyn was present at locations Henry was assigned. Still, no concrete evidence proved a relationship beyond work. When the internal report was sent to command, the investigation chief said only, "Rumors are not evidence." The deeper Hale went, the more he encountered silence. The planning office refused to provide more financial files, citing lost originals. Some department officers advised him to shelve this case, as no one wanted Kane's name in an unresolved file. Even the city prosecutor rejected a second summons for Andrew, citing no specific criminal evidence. One late March evening, Hale sat alone in his office, facing the Clear Creek Canyon map with Henry's red marks. All matched parcels Kane Development had acquired the previous year. He knew something, he thought, and didn't get to say it. But that reasoning had no legal value. He needed evidence, testimony, and items strong enough to reopen the investigation. For now, every lead ended in a dead end. As winter faded, the Henry Lawson file sat motionless on Hale's desk, thickened by notes and supplemental reports, but with no progress. The case was unofficially removed from priority. Media stopped mentioning it, and even inside the department, people began speaking of it in lowered voices, like a failure no one wanted to recall. At the end of March 1979, after 3 months of fruitless investigation, the file was stamped active, pending new evidence, meaning still open, but no dedicated investigation team. Evidence continued storage in the Criminal Archive, and the Clear Creek map with Henry Lawson's red dots was folded, placed in the file envelope. Robert Hale was the last to leave the investigation room that day. He turned off the lights, looked through the window where snow was slowly melting on the opposite roof, and understood Henry's disappearance was not just one officer's story, but a crack in the system where justice was sometimes buried with silence. Winter 1980, nearly a full year since Lieutenant Henry Lawson vanished, held no signs he was still alive. The investigation fell into prolonged silence. Robert Hale, once the file's soul, now only had the habit of opening the old drawer each morning, looking at the yellow folder coded Case 79, CC 2147. Over the past 12 months, no new witnesses, no additional evidence, no information from any agency. Kane Development's Clear Creek project continued construction, permits fully approved. Everything seemed back to normal orbit, except the question no one wanted to ask: where did Henry Lawson go? In February, the Denver Police Department's Internal Oversight Committee reviewed unresolved cases from the previous year. At the summary meeting, the Lawson case was discussed first. The investigation unit's report confirmed no viable leads left, no witnesses, no suspects, no body. All that remained was a disjointed chain: the car on Clear Creek Pass, Colt .45 casing, O-type bloodstain, and mysterious notebook entries. The chief concluded briefly, "We've exhausted our tools to go further." He then signed the administrative decision classifying the case as missing presumed dead. This was the closure form for cases with no crime evidence, but no signs of life. In the final report, the summary was typed, "No trace of subject since January 1979. Presumed deceased based on disappearance exceeding 12 months and weather conditions at scene." A copy of the decision was sent to Henry's wife, Linda Lawson, with official condolences. She did not respond, only signing the death insurance paperwork weeks later. All evidence, the Chevrolet Nova, casing, bourbon bottle, police radio, notebook, and test samples, was sealed in thick plastic bags, sequentially numbered, and transferred to Criminal Storage Vault 3 in the Denver Police Department basement. This archive held hundreds of unresolved files, with stable temperature and strict access control. On each evidence box, a white label read, "Lawson, Henry, missing officer, Clear Creek 1979. The car had key parts disassembled, wrapped in oilcloth, placed in the evidence vehicle preservation area. No one mentioned it again, except the archive staff. While finalizing procedures, Robert Hale was required to submit all original documents and personal notes. He complied, but kept for himself a single copy of the Clear Creek map, marked in Henry's red pen. Hale was no longer in charge, but he added one final note, attached to the official file, just 3 lines. "Recommend maintaining open status, pending future advancements in analytical technology. Biological traces and metal evidence must be preserved intact for retesting when possible." Those words, simple but weighty, were stamped "Received" and attached inside the file cover. The Lawson case was officially transferred to long-term storage. Per regulations, every 10 years, missing, presumed dead files would be reviewed if new technology or evidence emerged. Throughout early 1980, as the city recovered from economic downturn, no one in the Denver police force mentioned Henry Lawson again. To the public, he was just a faded name in old papers, An officer lost in a blizzard. No body, no explanation. One late April afternoon, Hale returned to the archive, standing before the neat rows of evidence boxes under yellow lights. He placed his hand on the box coded 79 CC 2147, feeling the thin dust on the paper lid. Everything once vivid, the case, suspicions, sleepless nights on Clear Creek Pass, now lay only in this box. He sighed, signed the inventory log, and left the vault without looking back. From that day, the Lawson case was no longer mentioned in any meeting. On paper, it was one name in a long list of Colorado missing persons from the late 1970s. But on the file's last page, below Robert Hale's signature, remained a note few noticed. Re-examine when technology allows recovery of DNA and ballistics at micro level. Those words were typed on an old typewriter, but later, they would reopen a case thought forever asleep. When time and science finally caught up to the darkness 1980 left behind. After being classified as missing presumed dead, the Henry Lawson file gradually faded into oblivion. Denver entered the 1980s with major upheavals. The oil crisis, waves of migration, the explosion of real estate projects, including residential areas sprouting around Clear Creek Canyon. Many newcomers had no idea this place was once the epicenter of a mysterious disappearance. The Denver Police Department also saw generations change. Officers who had directly investigated the Lawson case either retired or passed away. Robert Hale left the force in 1986, taking with him a personal set of notes no one noticed. He lived reclusively in the Arvada suburbs, occasionally invited to department commemorations, but almost never mentioning Henry Lawson's name. Meanwhile, the police department's criminal evidence archive, deep in the basement of the old building on Cherokee Street, remained silent like a separate world. Temperature maintained at 10 degrees C, thick concrete walls against moisture, each shelf holding hundreds of forgotten files. On one of those wooden racks, the evidence box coded 79 CC 2147 for Henry Lawson remained intact. Sealing tape untorn, plastic bags of evidence neatly ordered, including the .45 casing, bourbon bottle, police radio, and blood test samples preserved in glass vials. Occasionally, archive staff during routine checks noted, no damage. Condition stable. 30 years passed, criminal investigation technology changed rapidly. From the early 2000s, when Denver built Colorado's first DNA analysis center, hundreds of old cases were revived through trace testing techniques. However, the Lawson file stayed dormant, partly due to no requests, partly because it was never categorized as recoverable case. With sparse documentation and no body, the disappearance seemed to promise nothing. In 2015, when Denver police announced restructuring the Special Investigations Division, a new unit called the Cold Case Unit was formed. Their mission, review unsolved cases before 1990, focusing on files with preserved biological evidence. The team had only 8 members, 3 investigators, 2 forensic technicians, 3 data specialists, but granted access to the entire city archive. Among over 1,000 screened files, code 79 CC 2147 was initially just a small number among hundreds of other disappearances. However, Robert Hale's 1980 note, requesting re-examination with new technology, marked it priority review. In July that year, young technician Sarah Donnelly and the forensics team went to the archive to inventory old files. Opening the 1970s unresolved officer files list, Henry Lawson's name appeared. Donnelly, born nearly a decade after Lawson vanished, skimmed the case description and paused at the final line. Recommend retesting DNA and ballistics when technical conditions allow. She marked it red. At least, this one has intact evidence, she told her colleague. That day, the evidence box was transferred from cold storage to temporary preservation for condition assessment. Seals remained intact, tape yellowed, but blood sample tubes inside, unfrozen thanks to stable environment for 35 years. Inventory report noted, evidence suitable for DNA recovery testing. That short note to Sarah Donnelly was like a command. Outside, 2015 Denver was a different city, bright lights, bustling, where technology and development buried old memories. But in the police headquarters' chilly basement, fragments of the past lay still, waiting for someone to touch them and ask the question forgotten since 1979. When Donnelly signed the file receipt, no one in the team noticed on the box lid, beneath thin dust, Robert Hale's ink pen writing, "Cold case, wait for time." Those words, after nearly 36 years, were finally read again, starting the revival of a disappearance. The city thought forever asleep. August 2015, Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly officially took over File 79, CC 2147, Henry Lawson, from the Denver Police Department basement archive. She was one of 3 lead investigators in the cold case unit, formed less than a year earlier, specializing in reviewing unsolved cases over 3 decades old. Opening the file, Donnelly immediately noticed the difference. Reports typed on ancient typewriters, paper yellowed, but every detail meticulously organized. On the first page was Robert Hale's handwritten note. The original 1979 investigator, recommend re-examination when technology allows micro-level DNA and ballistics recovery. That note made Donnelly decide to place the Lawson case in special priority. First step, she reviewed all stored physical evidence. The evidence box included Colt .45 casing, blood sample in glass vial labeled O1979, hair fiber from passenger headrest, plus plastic bags with fabric remnants and plastic fragments from car interior. All still originally sealed, thanks to stable preservation over 30 years. Donnelly immediately contacted the Colorado Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab in Lakewood to request old sample DNA recovery feasibility. CBI confirmed, with current trace DNA analysis and electron spectroscopy, they could extract gene sequences even from over 90% degraded samples, something unimaginable in 1980. On August 17th, all samples were transported by CBI specialized vehicle, police escorted, with new sealing records. Donnelly signed handover at Denver headquarters at 9:42 a.m., officially reopening the Lawson file after 36 years since closure. In the internal tracking log, she wrote the first line in blue pen, "Case reopened, physical evidence intact." While awaiting CBI results, Donnelly began step 2, digitizing the entire old file. She and technicians restored 1979 Kodak film scene photos, now faded and cracked at edges. After scanning and contrast adjustment, they saw clearer the abandoned Chevrolet Nova on Clear Creek Pass. Headlights on, snow on roof, driver's door ajar. Donnelly requested the graphics department to build a 3D model based on photos, scene sketches, and terrain maps. This model helped redetermine the .45 bullet firing angle described in 1979 as from passenger seat diagonal toward driver's door. Using modern trajectory projection software, the team confirmed the initial angle but discovered new detail. The bullet was fired from lower than seat height, suggesting the shooter was bent or kneeling, a factor never previously recorded. Parallel to image processing, Donnelly converted all 1979 interrogation transcripts to digital. Old cassette tapes were denoised and saved as digital audio. Listening to Evelyn Kane's voice, the last witness, Donnelly noticed hesitant pauses not shown in handwritten transcripts. Evelyn spoke slowly, even tone. But when asked about the moment when Henry left the car, her voice dropped and prolonged, "I don't know." Donnelly marked the segment, noting, "Psychological instability signs, needs voice recognition reanalysis." Early September 2015, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab report arrived at Denver Police, marking the first breakthrough since reopening 79, CC 2147. Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly was in the cold case unit briefing room at 8 a.m., holding a nearly inch-thick file, outside labeled Red DNA, Confidential. The room fell silent as she read the opening lines. DNA testing from blood sample 01979, collected from Chevrolet Nova Flor, matched absolutely with Lieutenant Henry Lawson's reference sample from 1977 Department Medical File. Error under 0.1%. CBI confirmed the car blood was definitely Lawson's. The report also noted minimal blood volume, but location seeped into mat behind passenger seat, suggested the victim was injured inside the vehicle, likely from external impact rather than accident. With this result, the Lawson voluntarily left Denver hypothesis was officially eliminated. More importantly, the passenger headrest hair fiber, 1979, testing only identified as female unknown identity, now had an answer via modern DNA. The hair gene sequence matched 99.98%, with Evelyn Kane's DNA sample from Colorado Civil Records in 2009, when she applied for a passport. Reports stated, hair sample C12 and subject E. Kane confirmed same maternal origin. In other words, the woman who claimed only rode with Lawson halfway then parted was definitely in the car at the incident time, long enough to leave biological traces. Donnelly read slowly, feeling both excitement and chills. In the 1979 original file, Evelyn was last witness, never a suspect due to lack of evidence. Now her hair was in the same space as Henry Lawson's blood. Undeniable proof they were together in the car at Clear Creek Canyon, exactly where Lawson vanished. After reviewing results, the cold case team held an emergency meeting. With Donnelly were Detective Eric Mann, ballistics expert, and Unit Captain Donald Reeves. Donnelly recapped the entire process, from Evelyn's initial statement to car location inconsistencies. She said Lawson left the car outside in snow, and she didn't follow. But her DNA is in the car, precisely passenger seat, where the .45 was fired. That changes everything, she said. Reeves was silent, long then nodded. If true, we're looking at manslaughter, no longer missing. Detective Mann added, don't forget, the gun type for that bullet was Colt .45, Mark IV, common civilian late 1970s, not issued to police. Andrew Kane was a former naval officer, likely owned personal firearms. We may have two directions, Evelyn directly involved, or someone in the Kane family was with them. Donnelly quickly noted, DNA match. Evelyn Kane confirmed passenger. Reclassify case. After the meeting, she submitted a formal proposal to the Denver prosecutor's office to change file status from missing officer to unresolved homicide, pending suspect identification. Approved same day. All documents re-entered the city digital system under new code 79-2147. Donnelly's next task was cross-referencing DNA results with 1979 forensics for injury timing possibility. Old report noted, very small blood amount, possibly from open hand wound. However, blood seep location behind passenger seat, incompatible with leaving car to walk, as Evelyn stated. She marked this and requested 3D scene simulation. Results showed, if Lawson injured in car, the passenger was the only one who could cause that blood, accidental or intentional. September 14th, Donnelly completed the 12-page summary sent to Denver Police Chief. The report clearly stated, 1. Blood DNA confirms Lawson injured and present in car to final moment. 2. Hair DNA confirms Evelyn Kane passenger in same car, contrary to statement left car, while Lawson still inside. 3. .45 bullet fired from passenger seat, matching hair discovery location. 4. No signs Lawson used or owned that weapon type. Conclusion presented briefly, grounds to determine Lieutenant Henry Lawson died from undetermined violent act, likely in or around the vehicle. Witness Evelyn Kane directly linked to scene. That afternoon, leaving the office, Sarah Donnelly paused in the long hallway, where photos of officers killed in the line of duty hung along the wall. Among dozens of frames, she stopped before the small plaque engraved Lieutenant Henry Lawson. Missing, 1979. The plaque dusty engraving faded. Donnelly wiped it clean, then stood silent. For 36 years, he was only remembered as lost in a blizzard. Now, the truth was emerging, not that he left, but someone ensured he couldn't return. September 16, 2015. Per Police Chief Administrative Decision, the Lawson case was officially recoded from missing. Presumed dead to undetermined homicide. Open investigation. The internal unit-wide cold case bulletin had a final typed note. Based on 2015 authenticated DNA results, Lawson case treated as undetermined manslaughter investigation. Full investigation restart. To Sarah Donnelly, it was a rare career moment when a thought-dead file breathed new life. But she also understood, with that hope, an old spiral was reopening. Where the names Kane and Clear Creek Canyon, after over 3 decades, began appearing again in Denver police records. April 2016, over 37 years after Lieutenant Henry Lawson vanished in Denver winter. A call from Jefferson County suddenly shook the entire cold case unit. At 8 a.m., the Police Department Technical Division received an urgent report from the Clear Creek Tunnel Tourism Expansion Site, an infrastructure redevelopment project for mountain visitors. While excavating old rock layers just over 20 feet from the road surface, workers discovered an unusual structure, thick fabric, and a shiny round metal piece glinting in damp soil. When the excavator stopped, a worker climbed down to check and shouted, "Human bones here." Information immediately transferred to local police, and 2 hours later, the Clear Creek Canyon area, once the 1979 disappearance scene, was fully sealed. Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly and 2 cold case investigators headed out, bringing original file 79-2147. Upon arrival, they saw security barriers around the tunnel entrance, police vehicles, forensics vans, and scene examiners standing silent under cold spring sun. Technicians pointed Donnelly to a soil cavity just large enough for one person to lie, half filled with rubble and dry grass. Exposed on the surface was a nearly intact skeleton, chest still with dark fabric remnants, and beside the right ribs, a brass police badge. When light hit, the engraving was clear. Denver Police Department, Lieutenant 2147. Donnelly stood silent a few seconds, then opened her notebook. That number, 2147, was Lawson's file code. No doubt this was where he had lain for nearly 4 decades. The area was coordinate marked, photographed, and laser scanned entirely before removal. Technicians collected each bone fragment, fabric piece, plus remaining items, a rusted metal watch, a key ring, and especially a Colt .45 handgun. Steel. Corroded but serial number still legible. When Donnelly saw the gun, her heart sank. The previous year, ballistics had determined the bullet from Lawson's car was Colt .45 Mark IV, common civilian, late 1970s. Now the gun beside the body had serial C71452, matching Henry Lawson's personal firearm registration in 1976 personnel files. A paradox, the gun thought missing with Lawson now appeared right beside him, after over 30 years buried in soil. All remains and evidence were sealed, transferred to the Colorado State Forensics Lab in Golden for examination. Urgent DNA tests were conducted. Results took less than 10 days. The official report, signed April 22, 2016, confirmed femur bone DNA, matched 99.99% with Henry Lawson's old biological sample. No doubt, Lieutenant Lawson died at Clear Creek Canyon, found over 3 decades after disappearance. However, the details around the scene made the conclusion about the cause of death far from simple. The Colt .45 lay in the right hand of the skeleton, barrel angled down toward the ground, cylinder empty, but chamber still holding one intact round. Initial examination determined the gun had been fired at least once before burial. The victim's right skull had a small fracture, but not enough to conclude from bullet or impact. The preliminary forensics report stated, insufficient evidence to determine mechanism of death, cannot rule out external force or close-range shooting. To Donnelly, every detail mattered. If the gun was Henry's, why was the bullet found in the car in 1979, fired from another gun of the same caliber? If Henry died at Clear Creek, Why was his car abandoned nearly 2 miles away, with the door open and lights on? And if it was suicide, why the O-type blood in the car, behind the passenger seat, along with Evelyn Kane's hair? As soon as the DNA results were confirmed, the Denver Police Department issued an official announcement restarting the Henry Lawson case investigation, now classified as homicide. Active investigation. A joint investigation team was formed, coordinating between the Cold Case Unit and Homicide Division. All old files, statements, maps, and 1979 evidence were retrieved from storage. Donnelly was appointed lead field investigator, tasked with cross-referencing old data with new evidence. Local media quickly covered the shocking Clear Creek discovery. The Denver Post and Rocky Mountain News ran long articles, recalling the forgotten disappearance of a police officer. Images of the rusted badge and Colt gun beside the skeleton became symbols of an unanswered question: who made Henry Lawson die, and why was the truth buried for so long? The evening the DNA report arrived, Sarah Donnelly stood alone in her office, looking through the window toward the western mountains, where Clear Creek lights still twinkled in the mist. On her desk was the cleaned badge, Lieutenant 2147, gleaming under the light. She carefully placed it in a new evidence box, signed the record, and wrote the final line in her investigation log. Body recovered. Case returns to criminal investigation status. Lawson finally home. The comprehensive forensic report was released in late May 2016, nearly a month after Lieutenant Henry Lawson's remains were excavated. The file, over 200 pages thick, including DNA analyses, injury reconstruction models, and ballistics comparisons. Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly attended the results presentation at the Colorado State Lab in Golden, where forensic experts had spent over 4 weeks processing every bone fragment and evidence item. Lead examiner Dr. Rebecca Sloan presented the report in a steady, low voice, detail by detail. The first and most critical result concerned the victim's injuries. Analysis of the left shoulder blade and rib cage showed incomplete penetration, bone surface lightly abraded, with a diagonal fracture from back to front. Combined with 3D reconstruction, specialists determined this was a .45 caliber bullet wound, path from behind the left shoulder to front right chest, angled downward about 15 degrees. The bullet did not fully penetrate but ricocheted off bone, causing soft tissue damage, not instant death. The direct cause of death was acute blood loss combined with hypothermia in February 1979. Blizzard conditions. The report stated clearly, no evidence victim died on site. Death occurred hours after injury. The second result was even more shocking. During analysis of the Colt .45 found beside the body, the lab discovered a faint fingerprint on the trigger. Though metal oxidized, laser scanning and microspectroscopy imaging restored ridge structure at 3 points. 2 were too unclear for identification, but the third base of the index finger partially matched Evelyn Kane's biometric records in Colorado's civil database. Match probability 83%, insufficient for conviction but too high for coincidence. Report concluded, likely suspect or witness handled the gun near firing time. Hearing this, Sarah Donnelly said nothing, only opened her notebook writing partial match, E. Kane on trigger. Sloan continued explaining that, besides the print, the grip had synthetic gray fabric fibers, similar to the women's coat material Evelyn wore in 1979 archival photos. Not absolute confirmation but strengthened the hypothesis. Evelyn contacted the weapon the night Henry Lawson was shot. The ballistics team simultaneously released results. The Colt .45 at the scene had barrel scratches fully matching the casing from Lawson's 1979 car. This proved both items, bullet and gun, belonged to the same weapon. But paradoxically, per records, the gun was Henry's personal property, meaning he was injured by his own gun, and the shot fired with someone else in the passenger seat. To test this, CBI technicians used virtual reality scene reconstruction. They input all evidence data, bullet angle, car position, blood direction, hair coordinates. Simulation results showed, with the diagonal path from behind left shoulder forward, The shot could only occur with Lawson in the driver's seat and the shooter in passenger, barrel-angled left. Bullet path matched the casing drop and blood behind passenger seat. Police preliminary conclusion: shot fired inside the car at the location Lawson and Evelyn were both present. The forensic report added no signs of restraint or binding. The two may have struggled or fought over the gun in confined space. This fit Evelyn's 1979 statement, "Only heard a loud noise and Lawson left the car." With new results, police believe that noise was the .45 shot. The meeting ended with Donnelly's presentation to Denver Police Bureau leadership. She summarized all facts: blood DNA matching Henry, hair matching Evelyn, partial trigger print, ballistics showing passenger side shot. "Everything points to one place," she said, "that both were in the car when the gun fired, and the trigger pulled from Mrs. Evelyn Kane's position." The Denver police chief, chairing the meeting, was silent several seconds before concluding, "We cannot yet determine intent or accident, but sufficient grounds to treat as undetermined manslaughter." Immediately after, internal documents were issued, elevating the Lawson file to special investigation, while requiring Cold Case Unit to continue tracing all Kane family information. That afternoon, Donnelly returned to her office, reopening scene photos. In the reconstructed image, the 3D model showed the car cabin, 2 seats, small blood streak behind, bullet path crossing diagonally. She stared long, then noted in her log, "Not instant death. He was alive after the shot. Who left before snow covered everything?" Outside the window, Denver entered early summer, weak sunlight over Clear Creek Mountains, once Henry Lawson's grave for nearly 4 decades. But now, with modern forensics, the story was clearer than ever. The bullet through the left shoulder didn't kill him instantly. Death came slow and cold, with snow and silence. And on the rusted Colt trigger, a woman's faint print from years ago became the most critical clue in the entire file, bringing the case from eternal sleep back to light. June 2016, nearly 2 months after the final forensic results, the Denver Police Cold Case Unit was authorized to collaborate with the Colorado State Criminal Geometry Analysis Center to reconstruct the Henry Lawson crime scene using modern 3D simulation technology. The project was assigned to forensic engineer David Lang, expert in collision and bullet path modeling. Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly, case lead, directly oversaw recreating the entire scene inside the 1977 Chevrolet Nova, the car found years ago at Clear Creek Canyon, still stored in evidence. Before starting, the team laser scanned the entire vehicle for high-precision dimension and mass data. 1979 scene photos were digitized, brightness adjusted, and cross-referenced with original police descriptions. Lang input every parameter: driver seat position, door angle, light locations, and especially coordinates of 01979 blood and Colt .45 casing under passenger seat. Combined with latest forensic results, the team could accurately recreate the car interior on the incident night. The first simulation session occurred in the center's virtual control room, with wraparound screens. When the model appeared, everyone was transported back to winter night 1979. Thick snow outside, headlights reflecting on icy road, cramped silent cabin. A mannequin representing Henry Lawson sat in the driver's seat, hands lightly on the wheel. The second, scaled to Evelyn Kane's 5'6" height, sat passenger, hands holding the Colt .45 angled. Based on bullet penetration angle, engineer Lang input parameters and ran the trajectory simulation. Results silenced the room. Bullet originated from passenger position, diagonal left, inches above Lawson's head height, an unintended angle, almost accidental. If the shooter was unfamiliar with firearms, misfire from wrong handling was entirely possible. Lang adjusted the model, simulating Evelyn holding the gun right-handed, left supporting the grip. As she leaned toward Lawson, perhaps talking or passing something, the barrel pointed at the victim's left shoulder. If simultaneously, the index finger accidentally touched the trigger, the system showed the shot following the exact forensic reported path. The screen displayed a thin red bullet trail, piercing left shoulder, hitting seat frame, ricocheting to the floor, exact 1979 casing location. Sarah Donnelly stepped closer, staring at the screen trajectory. All parameters matched: firing angle, distance, blood direction, Lawson's position. "If this is accurate," she said slowly, "the shot couldn't come from behind or outside. It happened inside, under 1 meter, likely unintentional." However, Lang emphasized, unintentional doesn't mean random. The handler had to perform at least 2 actions: release safety and pull trigger, meaning someone held the gun ready, not the victim. Donnelly nodded. The scenario clarified: Lawson possibly injured in a sudden situation, the gun taken by someone perhaps to inspect or defend, then fired inside the car. The technical team continued simulating 3 different scenarios. 1. Intentional close-range shot, bullet path straight to chest, no diagonal. Result mismatched. 2. Shot during weapon struggle, diagonal but upward, opposite actual. 3. Shot from mishandling while inspecting or passing gun, diagonal down left shoulder, fully matching forensics. All data pointed to the third scenario. Donnelly requested the technical report, with conclusion clearly stated: reconstruction indicates accidental discharge, likely occurred inside vehicle from passenger seat. Muzzle orientation consistent with non-experienced handler. For verification, specialists recreated a physical model using another Chevrolet Nova and same caliber Colt. They positioned 2 dummies similarly and tested at a controlled range. Results identical to simulation: bullet diagonal through driver dummy left shoulder, hit seat frame, fell to floor. Gunpowder burn distance, smoke direction, and casing ejection all matched 1979 data. When the report was printed, over 20 pages of summary detailed bullet path, positions, reaction speed, and time victim could survive post-shot. The system estimated Lawson conscious at least 10 to 15 minutes after injury, before blood loss and hypothermia caused death. This matched forensics: he died in the blizzard, not instantly, but gradually in cold isolation. The meeting ended at 7 p.m. Donnelly stayed alone in the 3D projection room, virtual car light reflecting on her face. She stared at the faint red bullet trail on screen, a thin glowing thread connecting 2 people side by side on that fateful 1979 night. Nothing indicated execution, but nothing proved pure accident. Only one certainty: the shot fired inside the car between them, and Lawson never left Clear Creek alive. The next morning, Donnelly signed confirmation on the simulation report sent to Denver police. Title typed clearly: Forensic 3D Reconstruction. Case 9/2007 in-vehicle discharge, passenger side origin. This report became the first scientific evidence in nearly 4 decades, proving the shot came not from outside, but inside the car, where one mistake, one small motion, forever changed the history of the Henry Lawson case. July 2016. Immediately after the scene simulation report was approved, the Denver Police Cold Case Unit began the next phase: recontacting original witnesses in the Henry Lawson case. Over 37 years had passed, many on the old list moved or deceased, but Donnelly insisted on reviewing every 1979 interrogation name. She believed faded memories might still hold key pieces. The first contacted was Gary Feldman, then bartender at McLain's bar, where Henry Lawson and Evelyn Kane were last seen before vanishing. Gary, now over 60, living in Aurora, took weeks for the team to locate via old employment records. In the interview, Gary recalled slowly but surely, "That night, snow was heavy. I remember because regulars canceled. Around 8, Lawson came in, knit cap, looked tired, sat at the bar. A while later, a woman, brown hair, long silver-gray coat, sat beside him. I recognized Mrs. Kane right away. She'd been there a few times with her husband." He paused, then added, "They talked quietly, no arguing, but tense. I clearly remember Henry didn't drink much, just bourbon, she had gin. They left together. I saw them go out around 10:30. Gary's statement matched initial data, confirming Evelyn Kane last with Lawson. But the difference was attitude. Per Gary, Lawson didn't seem drunk, but like he was weighing something, hesitant. And she held the car keys, not him. This detail made Donnelly mark red in the record. The second witness found was Alan Pierce, then a Denver, Idaho Springs route truck driver, retired, living in Pueblo. Pierce said that night he left a gas station near Clear Creek around 11 p.m. and saw strange car lights parked roadside, less than 100 meters from the stone bridge. He vaguely recalled two people by the road, a man in dark police coat, a woman in light scarf. Shown old photos of Henry and Evelyn, Pierce confirmed. Yes, them. I saw the woman open the car door, man standing beside. They seemed arguing heatedly. I didn't stop because the road was slick, but that scene stuck with me. The argument detail never appeared in 1979 files, possibly because Pierce didn't report then, thinking it private. Now, his account fit Lawson's car discovery location, Clear Creek Canyon, about 30 miles from the bar. Donnelly realized if Pierce was right, Henry Lawson was alive when the car stopped at the scene, and Evelyn was with him to the end. The cold case team continued searching witnesses around the mountain area. From old files, they identified a family once living near that road section, the Burnett's, who ran a small roadside rest stop. The husband deceased, but Mary Burnett, now 80, still in Golden. Asked about winter night, 1979, she frowned long, then said, I remember snow blanketing everything. Around near midnight, I heard a sound like hard braking outside. A few minutes later, something like a small bang, then silence. I thought someone stuck, but opening the door, only saw faint car lights far in snow. Next morning, those lights still on. The final sentence chilled Donnelly. The old scene report clearly noted. Headlights still on when found. 3 statements, nearly 4 decades apart, but all converged on the same timeline. Lawson and Evelyn left the bar together, seen together near Clear Creek, and an incident occurred shortly after. The new accounts strengthened the hypothesis that Evelyn was not just along halfway as she claimed, but present right where the shot fired, to ensure accuracy. The investigation team conducted on-site re-interviews with all witnesses. Donnelly and her colleagues returned to McLain's bar, now renamed the Timberline. They remeasured the back exit, checked old camera angles, and reconstructed Lawson's possible route. From the bar to I-70 highway, the drive took about 45 minutes in snowy conditions. This matched the time frame when driver Pierce saw the car, nearly midnight. After completing interviews, Donnelly compiled the report. Witness Feldman confirmed Evelyn left the bar with Lawson, holding the car keys. Witness Pierce confirmed seeing the two at Clear Creek, with signs of arguing. Witness Burnett heard a bang near midnight, consistent with the gunshot timing. She concluded, all independent witnesses confirm Evelyn Kane's presence at the scene on the night of February 17, 1979. There is no doubt Lawson was not alone when he disappeared. That night, as Donnelly sat alone in her office, witness files spread across the desk. The names, statements, fragmented memories suddenly formed a coherent chain. Lawson and Evelyn left the bar, drove into the mountains on a snowy night, stopped at Clear Creek, and one gunshot changed everything. No one saw Lawson again, while Evelyn returned to Denver with the story that he stepped out of the car and vanished. 37 years later, thanks to statements thought long forgotten, Henry Lawson's final image emerged clearer than ever. He did not disappear in the blizzard. He was there, with a woman right before the gunshot rang out. Early August 2016, nearly half a year after Lieutenant Henry Lawson's remains were found, the Cold Case Unit officially completed the Comprehensive Investigation Report, a document over 300 pages thick, distilled from forensic data, scene reconstruction, witness statements, and motive analysis. Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly spent over 2 weeks reviewing every detail, verifying the consistency of all evidence. Her final goal was no longer finding out what happened, but delivering a legal conclusion strong enough to convince prosecutors after 37 years of deadlock. At the internal summary meeting on August 4th, Donnelly presented the report to Denver Police Department leadership. It opened with a brief but heavy summary based on DNA, ballistics, fingerprint, witness statements, and scene simulation results. We determined the Henry Lawson incident was an accidental gunshot inside the vehicle, leading to death from blood loss and hypothermia. However, evidence also shows the person present with the victim, Mrs. Evelyn Kane, failed to report the incident, deliberately left the scene, resulting in the body concealed for nearly 4 decades. She sequentially projected each piece of evidence. DNA blood in the car matched Henry Lawson. Passenger headrest hair matched Evelyn Kane. Ballistics, bullet and Colt .45 belonged to the same weapon registered to Lawson. Trajectory originated from passenger seat. Fingerprint. Partial index fingerprint of Evelyn on the trigger. Scene, blood behind passenger seat. Car position, firing angle matched 3D simulation. Witnesses, 3 independent statements confirmed Evelyn was the last with Lawson near Clear Creek. Signs of argument, the screen map showed Lawson's final route from McLain's bar in central Denver to Clear Creek Mountains, where the car was found, then the body discovery point over 2 miles deeper. All formed a logical timeline: travel, stop, gunshot, departure. Donnelly paused at the conclusion, voice firm and slow. No signs of intentional murder, but clear evidence of leaving the scene, failing to report a critically injured victim, and subsequently concealing evidence. Forensic pathologist Rebecca Sloan was invited to confirm if emergency aid had been provided within 1 hour of the shot, Lawson could have survived. Failure to call for help directly caused his death. The figure silenced the room. Donnelly looked up at the commanders. If she had reported that night, he might still be alive. Instead, she drove away from Clear Creek, left the car, and abandoned a bleeding man in the snow. In the official investigation assessment, the cold case unit stated clearly: 1. The gunshot was determined accidental, fired inside the vehicle by an inexperienced handler. 2. Subsequent actions by the suspect caused death through victim abandonment. 3. Grounds exist to determine the suspect deliberately left the scene, failed to notify authorities, and did not cooperate in the 1979 investigation. 4. The actions constitute involuntary manslaughter due to gross negligence and concealment of a corpse under Colorado Criminal Code. Donnelly also recommended considering professional ethics factors, as Lawson was then investigating land corruption involving Evelyn's husband, businessman Andrew Kane. However, no evidence showed intent to kill. She didn't shoot to kill, Donnelly said, but she let him die. After review, the police chief approved transferring the entire 79 HE 2147 file to the Denver District Attorney's Office. An internal memo was signed on August 12, 2016, stating, "Request criminal prosecution of Miss Evelyn Kane for involuntary manslaughter due to negligence and concealment of a corpse based on physical, forensic, and witness evidence." Signing the record, Donnelly sighed, not from closure, but confrontation. She knew prosecuting a woman in her 60s, once an old file witness, would stir public outrage. But to her, justice could not depend on age or past. Lawson lay in the ground 40 years, and Kane's silence had buried that time. In the final appendix, Donnelly handwritten a short paragraph, not for the file, but herself. No doubt left. The shot came from Evelyn's hand. Lawson didn't die instantly, but snow and silence killed him. The case closes, not with a bullet, but with human delay. That evening, she left headquarters as thin rain fell. Denver's yellow lights reflecting wet on the streets. Upstairs, the thick printed report was sealed in an envelope stamped red, to Denver District Attorney's Office for prosecution review. The Henry Lawson case, after nearly 4 decades, finally had a name responsible: Evelyn Kane, the woman who walked out of the snow that year, leaving a dying officer in the car. August 24, 2016, the Denver Police Department, coordinating with the FBI Albuquerque Field Office, officially executed the arrest warrant for Evelyn Kane, the woman once the last witness in Lieutenant Henry Lawson's 1979 disappearance. The arrest was quiet, but meticulously prepared after nearly 2 weeks of surveillance. Earlier in the month, investigators confirmed Evelyn's new address in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where she lived with her youngest daughter in a small house off Canyon Road, hidden behind pines and desert stone walls. Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly did not participate directly in the arrest, but drafted the full file sent to Denver District Court for the federal warrant. In the August 15th submission, the court approved temporary arrest on charges: involuntary manslaughter, gross negligence, and obstruction of justice, both based on newly authenticated physical and witness evidence. On the 24th at 6:30 a.m., 2 FBI agents and 3 Denver officers knocked on Kane's door. Per the scene report, she opened in a robe, calm but confused when informed of the reason. As the agent read the warrant, Evelyn said softly, "I knew this day would come." She did not resist. The arrest took 8 minutes. Officers took her to the Santa Fe Federal Station for initial questioning before extradition to Colorado. In the interrogation room, Donnelly joined via video from Denver. On camera, the 67-year-old woman looked far older than old file photos: silver hair, wrinkled skin, eyes sunken but alert. Asked if she understood the charges, she nodded and whispered, "I didn't kill him. I tried to help, but I was scared." That was her only statement all morning. That afternoon, the Denver District Attorney's Office released the formal indictment on 2 counts. The opening stated, "Defendant Evelyn Kane, residing in Santa Fe, New Mexico, is charged with causing the death of Lieutenant Henry Lawson on the night of February 17, 1979, through negligent firearm handling, and deliberately concealing information leading to the victim not receiving timely aid. Additionally, the defendant provided false statements and obstructed the public authorities' investigation." As soon as the news broke, local and national media covered it widely. The Denver Post ran a bold headline, "Cold Case Solved After 37 Years, Woman Arrested in Officer's Death." TV channels, like CBS, NBC, and CNN, replayed images of the surrounded Santa Fe house, calling it Colorado's coldest case cracked. Old 1979 images resurfaced: the snow-covered Chevrolet Nova, Henry Lawson in police uniform, the rusted badge beside the skeleton. In Denver, the police department held a brief press conference. The spokesperson confirmed the Lawson case was reinvestigated over the past year with modern forensic technology support. Evidence shows the victim died from an accidental in-car gunshot, and Miss Evelyn Kane present at the scene, left without reporting, leading to fatal consequences. Asked why it took nearly 40 years, the spokesperson replied, "Justice doesn't vanish. It waits for enough evidence to speak." In Santa Fe, Evelyn's neighbors were shocked. One next-door woman told media she was polite, walked mornings, planted flowers. No one thought she was involved in murder. But those knowing the Kane past were less surprised. After husband Andrew Kane's 1998 death, Evelyn lived reclusively, avoiding all social activity. August 26, Evelyn Kane was flown back to Denver. As the police convoy left the airport, reporters crowded both sides of the fence, cameras flashing in the night. One shouted, "Do you have anything to say about Henry Lawson?" Evelyn did not answer, only turned away. In the strobe lights, her face showed exhaustion, eyes deeply shadowed, as if carrying the snow of 1979. Meanwhile, Sarah Donnelly received the indictment copy on her desk. The bold top line made her read slowly, "State of Colorado versus Evelyn Kane, involuntary manslaughter, obstruction of justice." To her, this was not victory, but the end of a long journey, where justice finally named the right person. Media continued covering the case for weeks. Reports called it the Lawson cold case breakthrough. To the public, Henry Lawson was no longer a name on a missing persons list, but a symbol of investigators' persistence, waiting nearly 4 decades for truth. And amid the bright headlines, Only one person stayed silent, Sarah Donnelly, who spent the final 3 years of her career bringing a figure back from the white snow. October 12, 2016, the Denver District Court opened the preliminary hearing in State of Colorado versus Evelyn Kane, marking the shift from investigation to formal trial after over 37 years since Henry Lawson vanished. The courtroom was packed with reporters. Major media sent live correspondents. The atmosphere was solemn and heavy, as this was not just a criminal case, but a symbol of justice returning after 4 decades. Evelyn Kane was led in wearing a simple beige suit, hands clasped, face cold and closed. She sat between defense attorneys Michael Trent and Laura Kim, court-appointed as lead counsel. Opposite, Denver District Attorney Thomas Merrick, state forensic experts, police department representatives, and Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly, investigation lead, were all present. The hearing opened with the prosecution presenting all scientific evidence from the re-investigation. Merrick stood before the preliminary jury, voice firm and decisive. "We have DNA, ballistics, fingerprints, and scene simulation, all unanimously showing victim Henry Lawson was shot inside the car by the passenger seat occupant, and that was Evelyn Kane." Behind him on the large screen, forensic images appeared, photo of O-type blood in the car, fully matching Lawson's DNA. Photo of long brown hair from passenger headrest, confirmed matching Evelyn's DNA sample. 3D simulation bullet path diagram showing 45 trajectory diagonal down left shoulder, from passenger to driver seat. Laser scan image of faint trigger fingerprint, partial match to Evelyn's biometric records. Ballistics report, confirming bullet and gun serial C71452, registered to Henry Lawson. Merrick concluded, "No one else was at the scene, no one else held that gun. She may not have intended to kill, but she pulled the trigger, then abandoned the victim to die in the snow." When prosecution finished, attorney Michael Trent rose to counter. He did not deny the Evelyn Lawson connection, but argued the evidence was too old for legal validity. "Your Honor," he said, "we're talking about evidence stored nearly 40 years under 1980s preservation conditions. No one can guarantee no cross-contamination or error. A partial fingerprint match cannot be conclusive evidence, and 3D simulation, though impressive, is technical assumption, not physical fact." He also challenged the cold case unit. They relied on modern technology to claim what no one proved in 1979. But technology cannot recreate mindset, motive, or actual human events in a blizzard night. Attorney Laura Kim followed, targeting prosecution. "My client was 30 then, a woman with no record, no reason to kill. No witness saw the shooting. No cameras, no recordings, no confession. They have data and assumptions. She has said for 40 years it was an accident, and prosecution uses involuntary manslaughter. So what turns an accident into a crime after nearly half a century?" Prosecution immediately rebutted, focusing on obstruction of justice. Merrick pointed to the screen timeline. "Accidents can be forgiven, but abandoning the victim, a gravely injured police officer, bleeding, needing help, then leaving the scene, not calling emergency, not reporting to police, that is criminal. And the truth is, she lied for 37 years. Sarah Donnelly was called as expert witness. She briefly presented the re-investigation process, confirmed evidence storage standards, and verified DNA and ballistics analyses, followed current Colorado protocols. Under courtroom lights, she spoke clearly. "I don't work with memories. I work with evidence. And evidence doesn't change no matter how much time passes." After the debate lasting over 4 hours, Judge Margaret Holloway requested a 10-minute recess before announcing the decision. Returning to the courtroom, she spoke briefly but decisively. "Based on the physical and forensic evidence presented, the court finds sufficient grounds to establish probable cause for defendant Evelyn Kane's commission of the crime. The court approves advancing the case to formal trial at the Denver District Criminal Court." In the courtroom, murmurs arose, while Evelyn sat still, eyes fixed on her thin hands. In the hallway outside, TV reporters jostled to send breaking news. Evelyn Kane to face trial in Lawson cold case, after 37 years. As police escorted Evelyn out, she briefly turned back toward Sarah Donnelly, a glance hard to read, mixing exhaustion, fear, and acceptance. Donnelly, standing in the back row, only nodded slightly, not as victory, but as final confirmation. The truth was strong enough for court. The trial of Evelyn Kane in State of Colorado v. Evelyn Kane officially opened on the morning of November 7, 2016, at the Denver District Criminal Court, lasting continuously for 10 days under Judge Margaret Holloway's oversight. The case drew unprecedented attention from local and national media. Each morning, dozens of reporters lined up at the courthouse entrance, capturing images of the 67-year-old woman stepping from the police car with composure, deep dark eyes showing no emotion. From the 1979 disappearance to now, over 37 years, and for the first time, the entire story emerged in a legal framework. The Colorado prosecution, led by Thomas Merrick, opened with a concise statement: Henry Lawson did not vanish in the snow. He died in the hands of someone he trusted, and 40 years of silence cannot erase the truth of one gunshot. Merrick focused entirely on the chain of physical evidence and contradictions in Evelyn's statements over 3 decades. He projected before the jury each file section, 1979 scene photos, DNA results, 3D bullet trajectory simulation, final route map, and her original statement. She said, Henry left the car to walk the road in the blizzard, while she stayed alone, Merrick said. But her hair was on the passenger headrest, her fingerprint on the trigger, and Lawson's blood in the car. No one else was there. She left, letting him die. Next, prosecution called forensic experts to testify. Dr. Rebecca Sloan, 2016 examination team lead, detailed autopsy results, the bullet from the passenger seat, piercing Lawson's left shoulder, causing blood loss and hypothermia. She explained, with this injury, the victim could live at least 30 minutes, if aided. But no one called emergency, and that directly caused death. When Merrick asked, could this be self-inflicted? Sloan shook her head. No bullet direction and wound position rule that out. Prosecution also displayed the 3D simulation model on the large courtroom screen, reconstructing the 1977 Chevrolet Nova on the snowy 1979 night. Headlights cast dim glow, 2 mannequins representing Lawson and Evelyn in the car, then the gunshot. The red bullet trail diagonally crossed the victim's shoulder, matching forensic reports. Merrick spoke slowly, emphasizing, this is not assumption, this is physics, this is the only firing angle, matching all evidence. The jury watched silently, many taking notes. For witness statements, prosecution sequentially brought Gary Feldman, Alan Pierce, and Mary Burnett to the stand. 3 who witnessed different moments the night Lawson vanished. Feldman confirmed seeing Evelyn hold the car keys, leaving the bar with Lawson. Pierce recounted seeing the two standing together, seemingly arguing, roadside near Clear Creek. Burnett described the small bang in the snowy night, and car lights still on until morning. The fragmented statements, pieced together, formed a haunting picture. Evelyn Kane was the last with Henry Lawson before he died. However, during the defense portion, the courtroom atmosphere shifted noticeably. Attorney Michael Trent opened firmly, "My client is not a murderer. She is a human who made a mistake in a terrifying moment, then feared. An unintentional bullet cannot be seen as murder." Trent focused on prosecution weaknesses, time elapsed, old evidence, lack of proof of intent. He pointed to the prosecution's 3D model. "This is just simulation. Software cannot model emotion, fear, or accident. It only knows numbers. But humans are not numbers." He also questioned trigger fingerprint reliability. "That is a partial match, insufficient for identification. If that alone convicts someone, anyone touching an object 40 years ago could be criminal." Co-defense attorney Laura Kim delivered a key rebuttal: "No motive, no evidence of conflict, hatred, or gain. No one witnessed the shooting. No cameras, no recordings, no confession. Lawson's death, though tragic, was an accident's result, not crime." She reminded that Evelyn cooperated with police in 1979 and maintained her statement. If she wanted to kill, she had opportunity and reason to flee. But she stayed, living 40 years in silence, not to evade guilt, but fearing no one would believe the accident. On day 8, Evelyn Kane was called to the stand. She walked slowly, hands trembling slightly, voice hoarse, breaking at the start. "I didn't kill him," she said. "We just wanted to talk, resolve misunderstandings. He had the gun on his lap, said he'd show me the safety. I didn't know. I held it. Then, the bang. I panicked. I called his name, but he didn't answer. I thought he was dead. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I just drove away, then stopped at a motel. Next morning, snow covered everything." Her voice choked. Tears fell on the wooden stand. Prosecutor Merrick objected, calling the statement staged for sympathy. But the jury listened intently. In cross-examination, Merrick asked, "Why not call ambulance? Why not report to police?" Evelyn replied softly, "I didn't think anyone would believe me. I was the last there, and Henry was police." On day 10, both sides concluded final arguments. Merrick emphasized that even without murder motive, abandoning the victim constituted manslaughter. "Justice doesn't require malice, only responsibility," he said. Defense responded with Trent's simple line, "If the only truth is an accidental shot, prison cannot hold human mistakes." On the afternoon of November 17, 2016, the jury retired to deliberate. The courtroom air was lead-heavy. After nearly 5 hours, they returned. The clerk stood to read the verdict, on the charge of involuntary manslaughter due to negligence, not guilty. On the charge of obstruction of justice, not guilty. Evelyn Kane closed her eyes, hands dropping, neither crying nor smiling. Merrick bowed his head, silently packing files. Sarah Donnelly, in the investigator's row, stared straight at the wall photo of Lieutenant Lawson. In the packed room, silence lasted nearly a minute before reporters rushed out, simultaneously sending breaking news: Evelyn Kane acquitted, cold case ends without conviction. On the courthouse steps, Donnelly walked slowly out, cold wind blowing her hair. She knew justice sometimes takes no verdict form, but the form of spoken truth. Henry Lawson was finally remembered, no longer missing, but real, with a real death. And after 40 years, the gunshot in Clear Creek's snowy night had its final answer. It was not forgotten, only delayed. The story of the Henry Lawson case, the Denver officer who vanished in the 1979 snow night and was found only after 37 years, is not just a solving journey, but reflects many issues in modern American life: trust, personal responsibility, and justice's value. In that story, an accidental gunshot, a decision to leave the scene, and silence lasting nearly 4 decades caused one man's death and one woman's lifelong haunting. Evelyn Kane's detail of not calling emergency, not reporting to police, fearing suspicion, is a very real image of fear of responsibility, still present in modern American society. In a country where freedom pairs with civic duty, silence can destroy as much as wrong action. Lieutenant Sarah Donnelly and the Cold Case Unit's persistent investigation also reminds us of steadfastness to truth. In a technology era where information can be distorted and justice delayed, their use of science, from DNA, ballistics to 3D simulation, to revive a seemingly forgotten case, proves truth may be slow, but never lost. The lesson for every American today lies not just in technology or law, but personal ethical choices, daring to face mistakes, daring to act rightly, even when fearful. 1-911 call could save a life. One truthful word could save one's conscience. And sometimes, as the Lawson case shows, justice doesn't start in court. It starts the moment a person chooses not to stay silent before wrong. If you believe truth, no matter how long buried, still needs finding, subscribe to the channel to explore with us more chilling cold cases that shook America. Thank you for following to the story's end. See you in the next episode, where another secret awaits unveiling through time's dust.